get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come
Good morning,
back to me
folks.
before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love, because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
We can get on a plane and take a one-way ride, steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to disappear for a night, just to give into the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Good morning and welcome to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I am your host, Rich Baris, the People's Pundit. Join the locals community at peoplespundit.locals.com. peoplespundit.locals.com. Remember, you guys from the Northeast, you guys remember redroses.com. Remember that? The Battle of the Roses. It was this funny thing these guys used to do on the radio, and they would call up and they would, you know, a spouse may think, or a girlfriend or boyfriend may think that their significant other's cheating on them. So they would call up, Hot 97? Was it Hot 97 or one of these people? I don't. No, I don't want to give Hot 97 the credit. No, it wasn't the Rat. It was that techno club station. Yeah, you know. Anyway, and they would say, you know, I think Laura's cheating on me. You know, or Laura would say, I think Rich is cheating on me. So they'd call up and they'd like call me and they'd say, this is Alex from redroses.com. You have won a free set of roses. Who you want to send them to? It was so funny. I mean, some of the stuff, and then of course they would interject and be like, you cheating son of a, I knew it. Anyway, this is, I'm trying to have a little bit of fun today because we do have some bad, you know, it's bad. It's not good. It's bad. Before we get into the registered voter economic confidence index, which is, going to the link to locals, if you haven't gotten it already. I did share it, so if you guys are on my, you know, Sheets profile already, then you probably can see it if you just go there. But we're going to go over those results today. The reason why I wanted to do them today is because we have the Rasmussen Job Index out today, and I think it's funny. It's not funny. I think it's important to note how similar some of the sentiment is generally the same. And then our expectations index looks a little bit better, but it doesn't look like, if you match it, if you take it alongside the Rasmussen's reports index, it doesn't look like, you know, people are hoping the future is going to get better, but then the future comes, and then it's not an expectations index anymore. It's a current index, right? And it's clear. I also want to compare it The way we're doing the registered voter economic confidence index is the same way the consumer confidence index is done, basically. Very similar to the survey of consumers by the University of Michigan Consumer Sentiment Index, but it's more closely aligned with the Consumer Confidence Index. And the reason why we did that is simple. When it comes to elections and predictive indicators, who the hell cares what all adults think? All we care about is what registered voters think. So wouldn't it be better to drill down a little bit more with registered voters? And it's not great. I'm just going to tell you that right off the jump. All right, but let's talk real quick before we get into that. Liz Cheney should be gone by the end of the week from her committee assignment. Don't be fooled here by what's going on. This is Kevin McCarthy feeling that his position is a little bit tenuous and trying to react to the base. Steve Scalise, who I think, most Republicans would respect the hell out of, or at least most anyway. It was shot by a left-wing nutcase who thought Donald Trump was a traitor who colluded with Russia to steal the election in 2020. Hat tip MSNBC, hat tip CNN, hat tip the Washington Post, hat tip the New York Times. I don't know why all their accounts aren't gone. Hillary Clinton. All of them should have their Twitter accounts removed if that's the standard by which we're going at here.
Seriously.
Because James thought Donald Trump was a traitor. He believed the news 100%. And he also believed that if Republicans repealed Obamacare, millions of Americans will die. Elizabeth Moore. But anyway, Steve Scalise comes out, and who does he back? Who is he backing? Elise Stefanik. Someone who was pretty solid during the impeachment. Plural. Someone who's pretty solid during the impeachments, but not exactly somebody that you would say represents the Trump base. Here's the problem. You want to have a big party. You want to have a Big Ten. Both parties do. And you need those seats like Elise Stefanik has in New York. All right? You need those seats. But it doesn't mean that they should dominate the leadership roles. So Steve Scalise from Louisiana, he's not from New York. But he's also not die-hard, right? Kevin McCarthy is from California, the biggest, most liberal state in the union. Or the biggest liberal state, I should say, because Hawaii really is the most liberal state. And District of Columbia is not a state, so don't
even go there.
All right, so the bottom line is here, does the Republican Party still, does its leadership represent its voters? And I think this is what Tucker Carlson in the last week or two has been trying to get to the heart of. They don't represent their voters. I have been saying this now for a long time. Democrats do defend their voters because in large part, they do represent them. So my point is, why does New York and California have the biggest say, whether it's the Democratic Party or if it's the Republican Party? Chuck Schumer, New York, Nancy Pelosi, California. Kevin McCarthy, California. Mitch McConnell is Kentucky, but he's more D.C. than anything. Let's be real. All right. So I just wanted to tell you that in the first 10 minutes of the show or so. Don't get your hopes up high yet. Kevin McCarthy sees the lunts written on the wall. And he's trying to react to keep you from flipping out. All right? By the way, Kevin, do you pay $5,000 a month for that apartment? Did you pay $5,000 a month for that apartment? And what does COVID have to do with him needing to rent an apartment from Frank Luntz? I don't even understand what he was saying on Fox and Friends. COVID hit, and, I've known Frank for years. Well, maybe that's the problem, Kevin. Maybe that's the problem. Oh, I met him back when Newt Gingrich and I were putting together the contract with America. You weren't putting the contract with America together with Newt Gingrich. The hell are you talking about? And if Frank Luntz had anything to do with the contract of America, he has long fallen from that tree. So don't try to pull your conservative bona fides on everybody on Fox and Friends at 7 in the morning. And Fox, man, they got, with the exception of Tucker. He's the only one with the cojones to go to talk about this guy. The role he played in the opiate epidemic in this country, he ran around the country telling everybody OxyContin was safe. Quite literally, quite literally helped facilitate the deaths of countless middle American conservative voters. So that's not too harsh. That is not too harsh. If you had any role whatsoever in telling the country that Purdue Pharma was a new wonder drug for pain treatment was safe, then you have to just accept your role in what you did. While your other friends in the Bushies and the McCains were invading countries and exponentially increasing the amount of cheap opium exported from theirs to ours. So when you got hooked on Purdue Pharma and you couldn't afford a $50 80 milligram Oxycontin, you could run down and buy a bundle real cheap on the corner. I mean, these are the people who really hollowed out the middle of the country. Give me that crap. Anyway, Rasmussen, before we get to ours, all right? Wednesday, May 5th. More than half of Americans say they know someone who is looking for a job, and their views on the current job market are worse than they have been in several years. This is why this is important, because while we are a registered voter index, we're going to calculate the index the same way as the Consumer Confidence Board. There is no doubt, I don't know, maybe it's the difference between all adults, guys, all consumers, and registered voters, but looking at Rasmussen, I'm saying there's not here. There is no doubt that we have not seen numbers this low that I'm going to read to you in our polling in many, many, many years. So I find this important that Rasmussen is saying this. A new Rasmussen Reports national telephone and online survey finds that only 28% of American adults say the job market is better than it was a year ago. 39% say the job market is worse than a year ago. And about a quarter say it was the same as a year ago. The number of Americans who say the job market is worse is now higher than at any time since October 2012, when 41% said the job market was worse. In November 2019, 44% said the job market was better, compared to just 19% who said it was worse. By the way, this index hit an all-time high under Donald Trump. 56% now say they know someone who is out of work and looking for a job, up from 47% in July of 2019, during the height of the damn pandemic. Or no, not the, right. The number had been much higher when President Obama was in office, with more than 70% saying they knew someone out of work and looking for a job as recently as September 2014. All right, this is a survey of 1,000 American adults. It was conducted from April 27th to the 28th by Rasmussen Reports. Margin of error, margin of sampling error, which is actually the correct way to say that. Plus or minus 3 percentage points with 95% level of confidence. And by the way, it is the way Rasmussen wrote it. Anyway, political affiliation appears to have a strong influence on views of the employment situation, without a doubt. We're going to talk about that too. Republicans, 53%, are now more likely than Democrats at 31%. Or those not affiliated with any voter, 36%, to say the job market is worse than it was a year ago. We don't have it that badly. And in fact, we have independents trending a little bit more towards Republicans than we do Democrats. Under Trump, if you looked at the conference board, if you looked at the survey of consumers, Democrats were way in another reality. The jobs market was booming. Jobless claims were at like 50, 60-year lows, and you were still having Democrats say the job market was bad, even though these are people who make a lot of money. I'm talking about the upper third. So they were just full of crap. They had orange man bad syndrome, and they would flatly lie to the conference board, or Nielsen, who conducts it. All right, and survey of consumers, same thing. Richard Curtin will tell you. In November of 2019, 74% of Republicans said the job market was better. Only 27% of Democrats said the same. About 4 in 10 of every party said the other. Those who are not affiliated with either major party are now more likely than either Republicans or Democrats to say they know someone who is out of work and looking for a job. That is very important. These are not particularly political people, right? They're not, or I would say, they're not party loyal people. And yet they are more likely than either of the parties to say they know someone who's out of work or looking. I took to Twitter the other day because I said it's anecdotal, But I'm just hearing from a lot of people, and it is certainly related to certain industries, that they're out of work or they can't find workers. Right? That's a big one. Can't get somebody to come to work.
And stay.
Right. The government has made it too easy for some people to not work, and they have made it too hard for others to find a job. This is not where I was hoping we would be post-pandemic. The Biden administration gets to boast that no other administration has ever created this many jobs in the first 100 days. Well, guess what? No other administration has ever created that many jobs in their final 100 day. So if you think your first 100 days looks good, look at Donald Trump's back-to-back record-setting 5 million and 2.5 million months, and you know you got a trickle. So it's a cute little statistical gimmick they get to play there. The question is whether or not it would have been much stronger if Donald Trump remained in office. And by all the panel indications, it would have been. Because for those 2 months where the election was a little bit uncertain, you had people really hold their fire. And that's not, look, this is not debatable. You can look at the National Federation of Independent Business. They do the monthly Small Business Optimism Index. These people held off on hiring plans. They held off on capital expenditures. They wanted to know which way the wind was going to blow before they decided to make a move. We see it in the Institute for Supply Management. We see it across the board. They were waiting to see. And that's why we always ask whether or not somebody is a business owner or what their occupation is. Are you a manager? Are you a supervisor? What field are you in? Because we want to know what the job creators think. It's just not a pretty picture. They waited for 2 months. I think they had a little bit of a hop up in the month or two after, because they were saying, all right, if we're going to do something to make a move, let's make it now. Before they make it even harder on me to hire somebody. Let's buy this equipment now before the taxes on them go up. Let's build these houses now before lumber quadruples. By the way, how did that happen? I thought I thought Trump's tariff strategy was going to send the cost of lumber to the moon. That didn't happen, did it? Lumber, gas, steel. No, now they're going up. All right. Americans under 40 are more likely to know someone who is out of work and looking for a job. Blacks, 63%, are more likely than whites, 53%, or other minorities, 60%, to say they know someone who is out of work and looking for a job. It is incredible how much this pandemic response, panic policy response, how badly it hurt the little guy. It hurt all of those disenfranchised groups that we are supposed to believe certain people champion. Those who wanted the lockdown are supposed to champion the plight of these people. And they hurt them more than anybody. This policy may have hurt them in the long run, probably immeasurably. We probably will never be able to measure the full impact, the full negative impact, the full consequence of this panic policy. But without a doubt, we can already see that this helped the rich. This helped the rich, this helped the powerful, and this stomped on the little guy. All right. Those with annual incomes under $30,000 a year are most likely to say they know someone who is out of work and looking for a job, and also most likely to say the job market now is worse than it was a year ago. Government workers are more likely than private sector employees to say the job market is better than it was a year ago. What a shock. What a shock. When you get a weekly stipend that damn near is the amount equal to the total stimulus check of an individual in this country for 11 weeks, of course you're fine. You can stay home, play with your kids, pretend like, you're afraid of COVID. Rack it in, baby. You can make as much in those 11 weeks as some people make a year. Among Americans who know someone who is out of work and looking for a job, 46% say the job market is worse than it was a year ago. Despite all the criticism capitalism has endured in recent years, by the way, Americans still overwhelmingly prefer it to socialism. That's true. But that's the arguments, the way the arguments are made. When you ask Americans that, it does not come close. But you need to ask them specifically about certain policies. And then it's, especially by age demographic, you'll get a very different story, which is terrifying. All right, now let's move to the Registered Voter Economic Confidence Index conducted by yours truly, in the Public Polling Project. By the way, don't forget, support the Public Polling Project. We're getting close to the end of spring here. BigDataPoll.com/Public Polling Project. BigDataPoll.com/Public Polling Project. If you are a member of the locals community, we are discussing right now an interim project, but you will absolutely have an input. By the way, if you donate to the Public Polling Project and you want to suggest something, do so in the comments. It's just that we have a conversation if you're a member of locals. What do you think about this? How about if we ask the question this way? Or what would you like to ask? And then, frankly, I form the question because that's part of the gig. All right, but yeah, peoplespundit.locals.com. Peoplespundit.locals.com. Did you send them the? I'm gonna take the risk here.
Oh Lord.
I am. I'm gonna take the risk because I want them to see it.
Pretty.
I know everything's pretty and beautiful.
Like you.
I know.
You're not my friend. Right
I know. Look, how about this? I'm just gonna put it on the thing.
Mm-hmm.
Look, guys, Laura's gonna take it from the feed and put it into the chat. I'm afraid to go into the chat because I don't want anything to get messed up. All right. But I am going to give you right now the link for it's basically the crosstabs so you can follow along, okay? All right, I'm putting it up on the feed, and then I'm going to get rid of locals altogether here. You handle that, okay? This way I don't freeze anything, all right?
My junk.
I won't mess it up, I promise. Parler, you're out of here. Parler is not the same, folks. Is it me, or is Parler not the same as it used to be? All right, I'll give you guys a minute before we get into it. I'll give you guys a minute to get it. Actually, you know what? We can show you some of the top lines, and then we'll get into the more, there we go. We'll get into the more complex part of the crosstabs once I see you guys are starting to get on, which I can already see you guys are starting to get on. All right, so this is how we ask the question. Please assign either a positive, neutral, or negative rating to reflect your perception for each of the following. All right? Again, this is mirroring the Conference Board's Consumer Confidence Index conducted monthly by Nielsen since 1985. All right? 1985 for their index equals 100. We are going to have our own baseline, which we'll discuss a little bit later about how I'm going to do. All right? But we can't use their baseline because it isn't quite the same. All right? Let me get rid of Rasmussen stuff. There we go. So we have plenty of... I don't have to worry about anything going awry, All right, so there you have it. And I do see a lot of people on right now. Let me give you the top lines while we are at it, okay? It is, yeah, there's a lot. Looking now. Current business conditions, positive, neutral, or negative. Only 24.7% of registered voters said that conditions were positive. 48.1% said they were neutral, and another 27.3% said they were negative. I would point you to the negative column by gender and look at how very closely aligned that we're talking about here, okay? By race, you can clearly see that whites and Hispanics, along with other Asians and subgroups, are much more likely than blacks. That's a little bit different for us than Rasmussen. You will also notice by party that we do not have this huge difference between Republicans and independents or those who say they are something else. It ranges from 28.5 from independents to 35.3 for Republican and 34.6 in the independent category. It is Democrats. It is the Democratic voter at 18.1 who is way out in left field. You will note that this is an ideological response. This is a cognitive bias. Or this is their party making sure that they are doing well in life. And actually, just so you guys can see it a little bit better, I'm going to readjust each column header and it will make it easier for you guys to read. Where are we here? Resize, fit to data. That will spread out the columns more so you guys can see it a little bit better, okay? Give it a second. It will take some time. I think it takes a few minutes for Google's cache to go through, all right? But I think it's important to note here that you simply do not, and we did give nationality and everything, we simply do not have this monstrosity of a spread between the out of power party and their other unaffiliated something else voters, okay? What I mean by that is, if we were to see truly positive reflections, all right, Democrats, 34.5%, say that current business conditions are positive. Now, that's abysmal. That's abysmal for Joe Biden. So let me just get that right out there. That is abysmal for Joe Biden. You just heard Rasmussen say it before. You can look at the survey of consumers. When we're looking at a party that's in power, well, Republicans want to say things are good because Trump is their guy, right? We're talking about 70+%, folks. We are not talking about the 30s. All right, so this is very, very, very bad. All right, and then you have Republicans at 17.8%. Independents are actually higher, but they're only a few points higher. It's in the sampling error, for crying out loud. While something else, those third parties who don't say they're independent are actually less positive than Republicans. So you have Democrats, again, way out in left field. It ranges from 14.7 to 21.6 when you're looking at all non-Democratic voters. Democrats are way out in left field at 34.5%. And that's important. Those neutral ratings, by the way, also very important. Doesn't really matter across the board. We're looking at 47 for Republicans rounded up, 48 for Democrats rounded up, independents 50 rounded up, something else 51. All really right in the same ballpark. Why am I saying that? Why am I harping on it? It's a cognitive bias, guys. This is a cognitive bias. Or actually, it's easier to just say it's an ideological bias. And we can actually look at that by looking at who, by ideology, views things to be more. Conservatives they're in the dookie. What percentage of conservatives say things are positive? 18.2%. That's it. Liberals are 33.1%. And moderates are actually right almost smack in the middle at 25.8%. Says really a lot. It does. All right. So next, and I'm keeping this up because, I mean, at least you guys can see the top line there if somebody doesn't have the cross tabs. Okay. Mm-hmm. And it's not that I'm, out of things here. The rest I want to say is education. If you have a high school or GED equivalent or less, we found really no difference in the percentage who said things were positive than those who have a graduate degree. Noteworthy, right? Very surprising to me. Very surprising. Well, the thing's not on me. Very surprising. I mean, the shot. Well, I'm thinking people who don't have the crosstabs in front of them, I might as well just leave this question up. And if for those who don't have the crosstabs, we're looking at current business conditions, the very top row there. Okay? Overall, again, you have 24.7% who say things are positive, 48.1% gave a neutral indicator, and 27.3% gave a negative. All right? And current employment conditions. Let's move on to the second row for those who are looking at the screen right here and not crosstabs. Again, this is the Registered Voter Economic Confidence Index for the spring public polling project. All right? Positive, 26.2% in the dookie. Again. Neutral, 42.5%. Negative, 31.3%. Again, guys, what people are telling us right now is the jobs market is worse than the business condition index. More negative, about almost a third of the country, more than 3 in 10, view the jobs market right now to be bad. About a quarter only view it to be positive. Sounds pretty familiar. We just went over the Rasmussen's job market index. And 42%, about 42.5% said neutral. Again, looking at male, female, women are slightly more likely than men to say the jobs, the employment condition in this country is more negative. Men are slightly more likely to say it is positive. I'm telling you, this is important. Because we were supposed to have an election that catered to the suburban woman. Mm-hmm. And that is not what we're seeing in these economic numbers. By the way, peep Texas a couple of days ago. Those suburbs didn't exactly flock to the Democratic candidate. All right, so whites versus other races. Black and Hispanics are actually generally in the same ballpark. Whites are more likely than blacks or Hispanics to say the job market is negative. All right, but as far as positive, Hispanics and blacks are closely associated with each other, while whites are much farther down on 23.4%, as are Asians, by the way, who do the best in this country. When it comes to the job market, labor force participation, the employment population ratio, wage growth, Asians, the unemployment number, the only group, racial, ethnic group that has a better or more solid trend are Asian than whites, are Asians. And here you have Asians sometimes even more negative than whites on what's going on right now. American Indian, Alaskan Native in the Dookie, 21.1% say positive, nearly 50 say negative. As far as Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander, we should just, you know what, I should make a variable that crunches those all together. We'll leave Asian, but then other will be all these other categories together. Because I think it'll iron out. We're looking at some really, really small subgroups. And those of you who've been watching me for a while, you know what these subgroups mean. All right. Again, as far as the job market goes, we have Republicans and independents right around at 21% each who say things are positive. That something else category is even less than them. And Democrats out in left field all alone with 35.4% saying positive. So they are significantly different than the rest of the country. Well, again, I'm saying this because you really have to think when you see numbers like this. You really have to think whether or not the economy is being tailored towards Democrats or they can't see me. All right, you have to think whether the economy. Let me look at them real quick. When you see numbers like this, you really have to ask yourself the question whether or not Democrats who are now in power are tailoring the economy to benefit their voters, or whether or not their voters are simply lying for an ideological bias, a party loyalty. Frankly, I think it's a little bit of both. I don't think under Trump, because I know it's not true, I think Trump's economy could have done better to help his voters instead of everybody. In this case, I think more likely than not what we're seeing is Democratic voters just simply saying this because it's Biden. And government workers, I'm sure, do feel more secure than private sector workers. I'm sure that's true. Union workers don't feel all that secure right now. We can go over that. But it's important when you see these. This is these are two realities here. You have Democrats living in a totally different reality than Republicans, independents, and those who are something else. And in case you haven't noticed, that something else category, third-party candidates, minor parties, right? These are the voters that are supposedly the ones who swung the elections in these key states to Joe Biden. We heard all these people before who blew the election. All these pollsters talk about how those Stein and Johnson voters broke so hard for Joe Biden. Well, they are more negative right now on Joe Biden and on his economy than even Republicans and independents. Elections are won on the margins. This is why I wanted a registered voter economic confidence index. Not that, what I said before, who the hell cares what all adults think. Not that. I mean, I guess we care. But when it comes to elections, we don't. It's just irrelevant. I want to know what those marginal voters are thinking. Because of course they vote. Of course they still vote on their pocketbook. Of course they do. All right. Again, liberals are the most likely to say things are positive. Moderates are right smack in the middle of conservatives and liberals. All right. Negative. Only 24.4% of Democrats say things are negative, which is still pretty bad. Again, when we see party loyalty, it's usually 70, 65, 70, or even higher. So these numbers are horrible. They're horrible for Joe Biden and Democrats because they're in power. And the buck stops with the party in power. These are very bad numbers. When you can't get a majority of your own party to say they're happy with the current economic condition, you have a problem. All right, so Republicans, 38.3% say negative. About a third of independents say negative, and 35.4% of something else, those third-party voters, say negative. All right, so now moving to the expectations index, this is important because with Rasmussen, it didn't come. I guess what I'm saying is what I see in the Rasmussen poll is that some of the hopes that we saw in our polling, because it was conducted before, just never came to fruition. We gave them a 6-month outlook, just like the Consumer Confidence Index. Tell us what you think. This is a 6-month outlook. Please assign either a positive, neutral, or negative rating to reflect your perception for each of the following. The expectations that business conditions. What is your expectation for business conditions 6 months from now? Okay. Third category from the bottom for those who don't have for those who do not have a spreadsheet or a Google sheet in front of them with the cross tabs. Positive, 38.5% total. Neutral, 38.9% total. Negative, 22.6% total. So it's getting a little bit better here. People are saying, I'm hoping business conditions are getting better, and I expect them to get better. Men, a little bit higher than women. Women are, interestingly, less likely to say they expect something to be positive, but they're also less likely to say they expect something to be negative. Women are being neutral right now about the future. It's kind of funny because men are so willing to give their views, but women are saying, I'll believe it when I see it, buddy. I'll believe it when I see it. All right. Again, minorities. Well, really, that's not true. Black voters. Hispanics are right along with whites. Black voters are more likely to try to give Democrats the benefit of the doubt. Asians also, who expressed a more negative sentiment towards the current condition, are also most likely than white, Hispanic, or black voters to say that they expect business conditions to get better. 48.4%. Now, as we go forward, I just want you to realize these are still not strong numbers. These are still relatively weak numbers. Let's look by party. Finally, a majority of Democrats get to be in a positive indicator. So when they tell us about their 6-month outlook for business conditions, about 53% of Democrats say they expect it to be more positive. Another 38% say they expect it to be neutral, and negative is 9%. But again, they're in left field with themselves. Independents are much more closely aligned with Republicans, 36 and 27.5% respectively, and those third-party voters are even less positive than Republicans and independents at 21%. That's it. 21% say things will get better. They're more neutral, though. Those third-party voters, 51% are neutral. 28% are negative, more negative than independents at 22.4%, and Republicans are the most negative of all, but honestly, not that much more than other voters. They are closer to the other voters, even though they're more negative, than Democrats are to those other voters. All right? Employment conditions, again, it just keeps going up if we stick by party. Overall, it's about 41% who say things will be positive, 35.4% who gave us a neutral indicator, and negative is about a quarter, which sucks. Which sucks. Democrats at 57.2%, they expect the job market to be better in the next 6 months. Unfortunately, they again are all alone. Less than 10 points separate Republicans and independents, who are about 29.5 to 39, while Democrats and independents are separated by about 18 points.
So a lot of wishful thinking.
It's a lot of wishful thinking. That's what's going on here. It's exactly right. Good. That's a great way to put it. Simple way to put it. This is wishful thinking on behalf of Democrats. This isn't based in anything, firm. This isn't based in anything solid, any, sentiment. This is them hoping that their party will do better in the future on the economy. Those third-party voters, less than 2 in 10, say that things will be more positive. 3 in 10 say things will be more negative. And about 53%, about half, say that they're neutral on this. All right, let's keep going by party, because we're coming up on the hour pretty damn quick. Expectations that total family income over the next 6 months. What do we mean by this? Well, if you give a positive indicator, you think your total family income is obviously going to rise in the next 6 months. If you give a negative indicator, you think that your total family income is going to fall. And if you're neutral, you don't know. Maybe it'll stay the same, right? 35.5% total are positive. Again, completely driven by Democrats, just under a majority, about 49%, 48.5 technically, just under a majority say that they are positive about their 6-month outlook with total family income. That compares to 28% of Republicans, 29% of independents, and 24% of something else third parties. Again, Republicans and independents are separated by about a point. The third party voters are actually below them by 5 points. And Democrats are out in left field, whistling Dixie, all by their lonesome. That's, Laura, that was a perfect way to put it. Because you nailed it. That was the point I'm trying to get across here. Mm-hmm. This is wishful thinking. This is an ideological bias. It's a partisan response. And it's not based on anything empirical. It's not based on anything anecdotal even. Mm-hmm. They just hope. Because their party's in power.
And they don't want to be embarrassed.
If it was real, then you would see independents with them. You would see the third party voters with them. But you don't. For those of you who are looking at the crosstabs, independents are right there with Republicans. They're a point away. And those third-party voters that supposedly gave Biden the margin in all these battleground states are below them. They are less positive, more negative. And those women that we heard about incessantly, by the way, how the Dallas suburbs work out for you. Those women are the most skeptical. They are saying, we'll see, we'll believe it when we see it. About a quarter of the country is negative when asked about their 6-month outlook for total family income. Not much lower than those who are positive. And more than 4 in 10 are just neutral. They don't know what's coming. All right, so this is the first ever big data poll, Registered Voter Economic Confidence Index. But what's great is that we did, mirror the methodology of surveys that have decades and decades of a track record. All right, so we know what a typical partisan lean looks like. And folks, this is not it. This is not it. All right? It's just, it simply is not. And again, in periods where we do see real economic improvement, we see independence, we see those others track with the party in power. It's not wishful thinking. It's the other party being bitter. So the minority party, if they express different views, let's say the economy really was booming right now, the roles would be reversed. It would be Democrats expressing a more favorable sentiment about the economy. Independents and those others would be tracking more closely to the Democrats than they are to Republicans, and Republicans would be out in left field, crying like babies and pitching a fit. What we have here is the exact opposite. Laura, you're wishful thinking. We have Democrats wishful thinking. The entire country says this is not good, despite, by the way, receiving all of that money. You have to understand, a lot of these people that we interviewed, they have their stimulus money. They got all of this government cocaine, man, they should be hopped up on. They should be running high right now. Running out to Best Buy, getting a new flat screen TV, maybe going to get that car, going out to dinner. They should be pretty stable and solid about where they are. If it's real. But it's not real. It is not. And there is no evidence, nor has there ever been evidence, that stimulus, government stimulus, has long-term impact on either consumer spending or the jobs market or any. There is just no evidence of that whatsoever. And I got to tell you, I hope Barnes is right on that infrastructure. I really do. Being dead. Because that will end up more like the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act. That's it. And what do I mean by that? I mean, it'll end up being funneled to friends. It's not even how infrastructure has worked in this country, folks. I will say this. Unions are slightly more or less positive. We found a lot of, slightly more positive, but it is a public sector union doing it. Just like what we found, Rasmussen found. All right. And that difference is 33.4 to 23.1 when we're asking about current business conditions being positive. Current job conditions is 38 to 24. All right. But again, there's still a lot of negative here. It's not that much different. Private and public sector unions combined, about a quarter still say business conditions are negative. That's just under the national average. And higher, by the way, than the positive reading. So this is why when I said before, you got to ask yourself, is this Democrats tailoring the economy to better fit their voters? Or is it just wishful thinking? Well, if it wasn't wishful thinking, we would see significantly higher numbers for their voters. And aside from party affiliation,
I was going to say, it wouldn't be one
it wouldn't be just one-sided like that. We would be able to look at
some independents.
That's right.
And some Republicans in there.
And we can nest these with unions and by party and right. Driving those upper Democrat union voters who work for government and are public sector unions. It is not, the steel worker, the automaker. That's not what it is. It's the food service worker at their local public school system. It's the, what on earth was that? It's I'm throwing stuff over here. It's the, what's the name of that big public federal, oh man. The one Trump actually slammed. I'm drawing the SEIU. Drawing a blank here. Public sector union, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. All right. And then as well as expectations, they're really, they're a little bit higher, but they're not that much higher. And that's because not everybody's a Democrat in these unions. Those private sector unions now, that's an up for grabs vote. In fact, that vote has been trending Republican for a while. It's just when you ask the question of union alone, that also gives you public sector unions. All right, which, let's go total family income, positive, negative. What are we looking at? A 5.5 point difference.
Somebody said AFL-CIU.
AFL-CIU. Is that it? The
Iowa.
AFL? Yes. Yeah, one of those. That's it. That's the one. Thank you very much. All right, small business owners, by the way, let's take a look at them. That's pretty interesting. Small business owners, positive, about a third, negative, about a third, neutral, 39. Current employment conditions, 4 points higher than the national average on positive. Actually, a little bit lower on negative. This isn't good. This sucks. This is, I have to be honest with you. I really thought that we were going to see bigger numbers than this. And not because I thought the economy was doing any better, but because there was so much government money being infused into the system. I would have thought we'd see the benefits of it. So without all of that money going out, folks, how negative was this? Mm-hmm. How bad is the economic picture in the minds of these people? if they didn't just get $7,000 deposited into their bank account, or 14 to 7. This is a freaking national tragedy. This is a national tragedy. All right, it's 11:50. Before we go to the break, and we can take some questions when we come back. All right, but before we go to the break, I want to talk about something we're going to do on locals here. You know, some of those topics we always get off topic, right? And when we, yeah, I know, right? It's believe it, it's unbelievable. On Inside the Numbers, I always roll off topic, and I start talking about, I don't know, foreign policy. Start talking about all this other stuff that really is not, data driven. And then I want to grab a book and read from it or something. We're gonna do these. I was on a conference call with other locals, content creators, about the direction of where it's going and how everything's going. And everybody's giving ideas and stuff. I love the idea of a Zoom meetup. So I wanted to do this like book club, right? And I thought maybe I'll designate a couple of minutes to Inside the Numbers for this book club. And then I decided no. Inside the Numbers should stay Inside the Numbers. There are other ideas we have for segments on Inside the Numbers. And we don't need to add something that's kind of unrelated to empirical stuff, data-driven content, right? So instead, because Laura gets a lot of requests about physical meetups. When is Rich going to do a physical meetup? This would be a great way to raise interest in doing something like that in the future, but also a way to give more exclusive content just to locals community members. So we're going to have, and please tell us on locals what days, and try to be flexible. We have Monday, Wednesday, and Friday that we have either What Are the Odds or Inside the Numbers. That leaves Tuesdays and Thursdays that we could do like an hour Zoom meetup. And what times are best? You know what? Maybe I'll put together a survey.
There you go.
And I'll put a survey on locals. And just like I did when we started Inside the Numbers. And you guys told us when the best time was for you. And what content you wanted to see. I make almost no decision without data being behind it. There's like no decisions made in my life without some kind of evidence-based,
FYI, though, it's going to be informal.
Very informal.
You're going to probably hear my kids in the background.
Yeah, oh yeah. It's going to be like, this is going to be a much more personal thing.
Yeah.
For locals members, you don't have to buy a book. If I want to do like a book thing, you don't have to buy a book. I will read the book. All right? And, if it's from mine, if you're on locals, I'll just get you a copy. If it's something like we'll do. And I know you guys are waiting for that new book. I have just so much going on. It is slower than Laura would like. But it's coming, all right? But this will be a new way for the peoplespundit.locals.com community to do more together, all right? And exclusively. We have all of this stuff coming. This is really, too, just until... I think you guys may like the Zoom format. Because you'll get to talk if you want to talk. It's different than when I get the live stream for locals, which is coming very soon. I still put a live chat open, but it's just a chat where you get to type. This is different. This is for us to meet up and talk and discuss different things. All right?
You don't have to have your camera on.
Yeah, you don't have to have your camera on. Not everybody, is like camera ready and ready to go. I get it.
Or if you're like me, camera shy.
Just no tubins. No tubins allowed.
No tubins allowed.
No tubins allowed. Please wear clothes. All right?
We don't need wiener incidents.
We don't need any incidents. All right? Because God help us if that happens. All right? Yeah, but I think this is going to be really cool and really fun. And at first I was thinking, just until the live stream. But I have a feeling that you guys will want to do this beyond. And we'll leave the live stream for something else, maybe like exclusive locals only episodes of Inside the Numbers, because I'm telling you, this is all coming to an end. YouTube, Twitter, all of this, it's coming to an end. They are terrified, and they're acting like terrified institutions and people, and they're going to ramp up this nonsense that we're seeing, this censorship, whatever you want to call it, this attempt, this pathetic, cowardly, desperate attempt to control information in this country. And it's only going to get worse. So the future of content creation is not going to be with them. Because echo chambers don't really last. They don't. An echo chamber has never made it the long haul. Has never made it the long haul. And I just don't see us bucking that historical trend now. Echo chambers last for a little bit. People pat each other on the back. Tell each other how great they are and how smart they are to agree with one another. And then things, they come to a halt. Somebody gives them a dose of reality. And it ends their world. And that's it. And it shatters it. All right, so with that, last thing I want to say before I get into the break is George W. Bush. All right? It's only a couple of minutes, so I want to say, I served under George W. Bush. He was my commander-in-chief when I was in the Army. And I was rather happy with him, at least for a while. All right? Being the commander-in-chief. He felt like a good president to serve under when you were in the military for a while. I have never been more disappointed with a political leader, personally, on a personal level, than I have ever been, than I was with George W. Bush. Again, I have never been more disappointed with the behavior, the performance, and the actions of an elected official than I have been, or a leader for that matter, because he was my leader, than I was with George W. Bush. From Iraq to the financial crisis, the man was never elected to be the president that he later became. He did win re-election when the war in Iraq was already cranking up. He did, but I would say he won that based on goodwill still of the 9/11 sentiment, post 9/11 world, and a little bit of fear. And those can be powerful, both of them together especially, loyalty and fear. They can be powerful drivers. But he barely won that re-election. He was elected in 2000, even arguing against the long-held positions of others in the Republican Party, to include members that had surrounded his father. We can't be the world policeman. NATO has to pay. Sound familiar, by the way? Mm-hmm. And then he reacted after 9/11 in a way that made even his daddy's circle nervous. To the point where his father's former Secretary of State had to leak to the New York Times in an effort to attempt to sabotage the invasion of Iraq at the last minute. From WMDs, Abu Ghraib, just down the line, to allowing Donald Rumsfeld to take the wars away from the capable hands of the men and women in special operations, along with even people in the CIA, very different CIA. You guys see that woke video? The CIA, I remember, would be ashamed of these people. Ashamed. And the enemies would be unafraid. But it was a very different CIA back then. You needed a couple of Green Beret teams, a couple of Navy SEAL teams, turn the CIA loose. And 3 months later, I'm serious, almost 3 months later, the problem is almost completely eradicated. Mm-hmm. They were just running around Afghanistan whacking everybody. But they were doing the job.
Those three-letter entities have too much power now.
Got an alpha team, meets up with the members of the Northern Alliance or other war factions. And you get 12 guys instead of, 12,000. You get 12 guys to teach a tribe of indigenous fighters how to stand up for themselves. That's a much better way of doing things if you can do it. That's what an ODA does. But Donnie didn't want to be left out of the war. Donnie wanted a conventional war. Donnie, by who I'm obviously referring to Donald Rumsfeld. So that wasn't good enough for him. Allowing George Tenet to cut his CIA loose with the help of their Delta, Delta is, it starts in the Army, but it's technically CIA. Try to walk onto their compound at Fort Bragg, see what happens. That wasn't enough for him. He wanted armored vehicles. He wanted M1 divisions. He wanted 11 Bravos. He wanted Marines. And the whole damn thing just got awry. The death count really wasn't as high as prior wars. Not to minimize any casualty. That's not even what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the mismanagement of it. Contractors getting all sorts of ungodly amounts of money. Remember Paul? He was supposed to go and fix Iraq. He was going to be the turnaround specialist. That turned into a catastrophe. Enron. Just on down the line. Meanwhile, towards the end of his almost neutered administration at this point, because he spent all of his political capital on foreign wars instead of what he promised to do, help domestic populations, he turned a blind eye while millions of illegal immigrants poured over the border. He turned a blind eye while thousands upon thousands of metric tons of opium were imported into this country. And he turned a blind eye while banks, yes, it was predatory, but they basically had a gun to their head, a government gun to their head, lent to people who can't afford it. Keep the people happy, keep them hopped up on heroin and phony mortgages so they don't pay attention to what's going on overseas. Twice he sent Hank Paulson to the Hill because he knew about the subprime mortgage crisis. Twice Hank Paulson went to the Hill to talk to Barney Frank and Chris Dodd. Twice he was kicked back. Shut up, go home, you have no political capital, your boss has no political capital because you spent it all in Iraq. The economic crisis happens, he nearly destroys the Republican Party, single-handedly destroys the Republican Party. And now this piece of trash has the audacity to lecture everybody else about what is and is not the appropriate path forward for the Republican Party. The nerve of this class of people. The nerve of them. W. Shut the hell up. Nobody wants to buy your stupid book anyway. Nobody cares what you've been doing since you left office. Nobody cares about what you think is virtuous or not. This is a man who invaded a country without cause. I don't even want to get into some of the estimates. How many Iraqis killed, maimed, and otherwise on a lie? A lie. Whether he knew it was a lie or not. I don't even care. Colin Powell knew he was lying when he gave that speech to the UN. George Tenet knew they didn't have the goods. Give me this crap. Now we're all supposed to be lectured by these people and we're all just supposed to forget about what they did to this country and the citizens of other countries. You may not feel bad for Iraqi citizens. I do. But you may not. But the Kurds we abandoned.
Oh, God.
Fight with us slaughtered. And then let's abandon you and leave you to get, slaughtered.
That's what happened. They went missing.
I mean, there's...
Families died.
I mean, it's whole tribes are gone. Whole tribes are gone. And I would just point out this too. Whatever your feelings are towards these people, and let's worry about Americans first. I'm with you on that. I totally understand your point. At least look at the more callous yet smart position, which is that Iran wouldn't even be the threat it is right now. We wouldn't even have the conversations we're having surrounding Iran right now if Saddam Hussein was left in power. They were, and this is why I want the book club, the little Zoom book club, because I'd very much like to explain in more detail how the world really works and how nations and their power is measured in terms of relative power. How strong are you relative to this power? Instead of spending all of that blood, treasure, latent military and economic power in the Middle East, we could have just sat back and let them weaken each other. And relative to the United States, China's power infinitely rose while we made these stupid decisions. But do you think George W. Bush cares? I don't think so.
Nope.
I don't think George W. Bush gives a damn about how strong China will be in 10 or 20 years. Now, the influence they exert over everything from our economics to our culture. Look at what they do in media and entertainment. Hell, it was their connections on Wall Street that even pushed Joe Biden into this race and then funded him. So forget about 10, 20 years from now. About right now. But I refuse to be lectured by this freaking guy. And nobody should care about what George W. Bush has to say. MSNBC, CNN, 20 years ago he's a freaking war criminal. Now he's the hero. Same thing with Bob Mueller, by the way. Bob Mueller was a Fourth Amendment violator who should be tried for violations against the Fourth Amendment under the Patriot Act. Then he was a hero under Donald Trump. It's Mueller time! No, I'm not going to play this game. I don't care what letter is after George W. Bush's name. He was a catastrophe of a president for all Americans. He left his party, one of the major national parties in this country, all but decimated as a national political force. They lost the state of Indiana. They lost the state of North Carolina. They nearly lost the state of Missouri after his presidency. And he has the nerve to lecture Republicans now on what is and is not smart politically. What is or is not the right path forward for the Republican Party. Well, if in my mind, I guess if we follow Trump, that'll just make us irrelevant. Well, I didn't know there was something in your mind. Mr. Stutter. Couldn't even talk right out of a microphone. You were daily embarrassment. I'm sorry.
No, it's all right.
Nobody disappointed me more. Not a Democrat, not a Republican. He was the biggest disappointment of my lifetime. Had such high hopes for that guy. And he turned out to be one of the biggest failures in the modern history of America. There would have been no Barack. If you are dislike Barack Obama and you're a Republican, understand this. There wouldn't have been a Barack Obama without George W. Bush. Mm-hmm. He gave the country Barack Obama, just like Barack Obama gave the country Donald Trump. So let's not forget to put all of this stuff in its context here.
Into perspective, yeah.
Into perspective. Mm-hmm. So George W. Bush gave you Obamacare. George W. Bush gave you all of those EPA restrictions you hate. George W. Bush gave you, among all things, well, I'm not going to get it. It's just that George W. Bush was an evangelical, Mr. Value voter. Oh, it's because of him DOMA went down. It's because of him we have... Well, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, and the laziness and complaint and being compliant to having others do all of this, we, the people, gave these idiots the ability to destroy.
Can we be real about how... Right. Republicans sat back, well, I think the Patriot Act is necessary. George W. Bush says so, and, he's the president, and he probably knows more than we know. And if they need to do this, then, I don't like it, but they need to do it. This new thing, the Department of Homeland Security, we're supposed to be conservatives, and we don't like big government, but, George W. Bush said so. And he's going to put Tom Ridge in charge of it. I mean, for the love of God, people. For the love of God. He's the former governor of Pennsylvania, and, we may be able to win Pennsylvania in 2004 if we do this. So, wink, wink. Mm-hmm. I mean, folks, let's not forget who is and who isn't culpable for the most rapid expansion of the federal government in the modern era. It was a Republican administration. It was George W. Bush. Debt, became acceptable under George W. Bush. The national debt became acceptable under George W. Bush. I'm not talking about deficits. Debt and deficits, that's a whole new episode. We really need to parse the difference, because deficits really aren't the problem. Spending is the problem, and I know that's crazy, but it's the truth, and one day I'll explain it in more detail. Debt and deficits are not the same thing. Debt became more acceptable. No, not more. It became acceptable.
Period.
It was not acceptable under Bill Clinton, who did a much better job as a Democratic president at balancing the budget and keeping us prosperous while living within our means. I don't give him the credit for that economy either, so save me those comments. But at least he didn't go crazy, folks. He's not an Obama. He's not even a Shell Biden, whatever we're going to call this guy from now on. Biden's whatever he needs to be. Has no core whatsoever. At least Barack Obama had a core. You knew where he stood. He had a belief system, and he was going to march on toward it.
The mistrust needs to be more vocal from the people to the government. Like I see people have mistrust with the government.
Distrust. Yeah.
Sorry, distrust. I said mistrust.
Yeah, I know. I know.
But distrust with the government, but it needs to be more evident, like way back in the day.
Well, Obama seized on that change that happened under Bush, where all of a sudden those who were supposed to be the most skeptical toward the federal government, which was conservatism, they were supposed to be the most skeptical. All of a sudden just, like put their hands down their pants, started playing with themselves and walking around in circles. I mean, this is nobody cares because George W. Bush said it. George wouldn't lie to us.
But that's the
and
thing.
So then you want to mock Obama voters when they all of a sudden take everything Obama says at face value. Well, it really wasn't much different than the post 9/11 era after George W. Bush. I can't tell you how many people I heard say, we got to take the fight to them before they take it to us.
Yeah, that was.
What the hell does that have to do with Iraq?
Mm-hmm.
There was never a connection between Al-Qaeda.
Nope.
Not until we connected it for them. AQAP was a creation of our military action. They weren't in Iraq before. They were just fighting us all over the Middle East. If we would have went to freaking Somalia, they would have went there. If we, whatever. Because they don't want us there. Al-Qaeda is the base. It stands for the base. Yes. They oppose any infidel Western occupation of their land. Would you not oppose their occupation of our land? I mean, can we be real for a second? So the smart thing to do was what? Occupy their land?
And
I mean, guys.
And that's what it in essence is doing, is throwing it in their face and then using fake
I'm not saying take them all out. I'm not saying that. Never did not say that. What I'm saying is you don't need a force of 200,000 to invade a major Middle Eastern country to have dealt with this problem. And in fact, those people who served on those ODAs, who served on those SEAL teams, who served on those detachments in the CIA, they freaking know that. Yeah. Because they were cleaning up just fine without Donnie and his crew. So anyway, that's my rant about George W. Bush. I'm 15 minutes past the break time here. This freaking guy has some nerve.
He ticked you off.
He has some freaking nerve.
Well, rightfully so, though.
I will take Bill Clinton over George W. Bush in a heartbeat.
Well, that's because it goes to the whole entire loyalty factor. At least you know what you're getting. Don't lie to my face and then stab me in my back.
Yeah.
That's where it...
And Bill Clinton pivoted, Laura. He pivoted. He said, okay, Newt won. The Republicans won in 94. I get it. I hear you. Let's work together. And then he decided maybe we should live... well, he didn't decide. Newt Gingrich decided. And he just said, okay, maybe it's not smart to live outside of our means. John, why don't you go ahead and put a budget proposal together? That's the last and only good thing John Kasich ever did. Because he was the point man on the budget committee. He was. Look at him now. Holy crap. How far people can fall. Anyway, you're watching Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. Follow us on Locals, peoplespundit.locals.com, peoplespundit.locals.com. Don't forget to support the Public Polling Project because we are getting now damn near close. I'm going to have to call it the early summer poll if we don't kick this up. All right. we could do a little interim jammy, but I do want another big one, and I was hoping to do that before the summer started, because people stop paying attention, and if we have to, then that's what we'll do. If we have to do it in end of May, and it's not released until like early June, then we'll call it the early June survey. I thought we could get 2 in spring. It probably doesn't look like we're going to do that. But people stop paying attention in summer, so it would not be good if this was like a mid-June poll. All right? Response biases are bad enough right now. Non-response biases, you're going to lose a large segment of the population if we don't kick this up a little bit. All right? And then we can maybe do one around Labor Day. Again, right after Labor Day would be the best. I still do believe in those benchmarks, even though the media polling has gotten so bad it's like you can't even tell anymore. I can still tell, right, Laura? Mm-hmm. There was a difference in our polling pre and post Labor Day. There's just too many challenges, and you don't want to add summer vacations onto those challenges. All right, so with that, I am taking a break. peoplespundit.locals.com. We'll be back in 2 minutes. Bad habit.
How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends, and spread a little love just for a little fun? I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be. I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love. Because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Take a one-way ride, steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to spear for knives to give in to the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker.
Yeah, I'm killing it early. We're back. Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm your host, Rich Baris, the People's Pundit. Join me on Locals, peoplespundit.locals.com, peoplespundit.locals.com. You can, of course, follow me on Twitter at peoples_pundit. And if you're watching on YouTube and like the video, go ahead and hit that thumbs up button, okay, folks? If you don't, hit the thumbs down. It's a free country for now, all right? And if you like the page, People's Pundit Daily, the channel, and you watch on YouTube, subscribe on YouTube, folks, all right? And hit the notification bell. That will let you know when we are going to go live. Laura informs me there are quite a few questions. Before I get into them, though, I did want to bring up, the thing about Bill Clinton versus George W. Bush. I would tell you to go to peoplespunditdaily.com, which is going soon to turn into peoplespundit.tv. I'm just blowing that open right now. We have to evolve. It doesn't mean we won't have election graphics still and everything like that. We will, and I'll be covering them live probably. Of course, the big events anyway. It's just that when you are, targeted for deplatforming the way we have been, you can't. You have to evolve. That's their goal, is to take you out. And if you don't evolve, then it'll work. All right, and in fact has. So you might have noticed that it's been dormant, and that is by intention. It's just to the point where they block us from everything. So it will turn to peoplespundit.tv soon. All right. In any event, it's still up there, and while you can, search in there ranking presidents, and you will see Nixon, Bush, Clinton, Obama, I mean, down the line. I think it's even FDR and Hoover in there. But you want to know economically who had the better record, George W. Bush or Bill Clinton. On debt and deficits, who had the better record, George W. Bush or Bill Clinton. Now, you can give Newt Gingrich the credit for that if you're Republican or conservative, and I think that's probably right. But there's no doubt that Bill Clinton, at least, he only lobbed a couple of bombs when he didn't want you talking about the cigar and Monica Lewinsky. All right? He didn't invade whole countries and spend the country's wealth on nothing. That's George W. Bush, who now wants to re-engage in the conversation about where the Republican Party should go. George, go back to Maine. Nobody cares what you think, George. Maine, Texas, wherever the hell it is. Nobody cares. Anyway, what are your questions?
Wait till I tell you Glenn's comment.
I'm sure Glenn understands what I'm talking about right now. Glenn, you know what I'm talking about. What a freaking disappointment.
Alright, so Tim Massey.
Don't give me that 9/11 talk either. My wife's cousin died in the towers. All right?
Yeah, well.
I joined the army after it, so please, spare us this crap. Didn't mean we had to go making the wrong decisions, which we did. Moving on. I need my Nicorette. I'm like an hour in.
Okay, so Tim Massey wondering what the Democrats' poll numbers are going to look like when parents find out the government will mandate their kids to be vaccinated this fall.
Whoa. I'll tell you what, I think Democrats now are starting to come to the realization, by the way, that people like me are right. That if you think your poll numbers look bad, then you should just add a couple of points to it because you can't reach everybody. So the polling at this point, I think generally is going to be very hard to get dead on or right because it's getting worse. Those responses are getting worse. And I think that if they do see that souring, it'll be even worse than you really think, right? So nobody expected Democrats to be completely shut out in Texas last weekend. That was not supposed to happen, all right? Look at the reaction in those local races to the wokeism, the critical race theory, on down the line. Nobody expected that kind of a bloodbath, folks. That was not supposed to happen. So I think they are getting it in their heads now. You saw that memo from the 5 big Democrat polling firms that they just can't gauge it accurately anymore. If they do mandate, and that's why I want to, by the way, get back to Tim. That's a great comment because this is why I did want to also make sure we poll during a good time before the summer really kicks in, because I want to re-ask the question about vaccines. I want to know if hesitancy is still where it is. If they mandate children get an mRNA vaccine when they are almost not at risk at all from coronavirus, this is going to be a major problem. All right? Yes, children are, it's mandated that children get certain vaccines for other things before they're allowed to enter public school system, but this is very different. This is an mRNA vaccine. No matter what Dr. Fauci and everybody else tell you, we don't know anything about them. This is the first widely distributed mRNA vaccine in the history of vaccinations. So while Fauci goes around saying, well, we do know that most adverse reactions are right away, that's not true. We don't know that about mRNA. Those are vaccines created by the antigen method, like Johnson & Johnson. Which is why perhaps you saw problems kick off right off the bat with Johnson & Johnson. And why they made those actions, they took those actions that they did against it. Because that is expected. But with mRNA, they don't know what to expect. And I'll tell you right now, my kids are not getting that vaccine.
I'll boycott.
I'll pull them out of school. I'll pull them out of school. I'll put them into either a homeschool or a private school. I will make alternate arrangements for them.
No, thank you.
Because my children are not at risk from coronavirus. Well, we got to make sure they don't hurt other people. The viral load, again, like most other SARS viruses, it is not novel with SARS-CoV-2. Children, as it turns out, do not carry high enough viral loads to be the petri dish for older adults in the population, like the flu. They can be petri dishes for the flu. They cannot be for a SARS virus.
But nonetheless, you don't hide behind a mask for a flu, and you don't force people to get vaccinations for the flu. So what's different? Nothing.
I'm over here crunching.
Oh, okay. So your next question.
Try to get that away while I get the Nicorette.
I cannot say this last name. I don't know if it's.
Don't worry about the last name. They'll know you.
No, it's about Cheney's opponent.
Yeah, bring up. Oh, Cheney's opponent.
Yeah,
I don't even think
she's actually
Cheney's
more moderate in terms of her voting record, but she's positioned herself, at least in the media, as a MAGA warrior.
Yeah.
You think it's a way of curing the problem McCarthy is having while ensuring an actual America First person doesn't get a seat in the leadership?
Yeah, right. That's why I would tell you guys to be very cautious of this, because her replacement is Elise Stefanik of New York. She was very good on impeachment, if that's what was important to you, if you're a Trump supporter and that's important to you. And it was. She was, not only was she very good, I mean, I have to be honest, she was very
persuadable?
She was very persuasive.
Oh, persuasive.
No, persuasive. She did an effective job of destroying the State Department's witnesses. She did an effective job of advocating for the president at the time. But she is no like free trade, anti-illegal immigration warrior. You know, I mean, let's get real here, folks. And Steve Scalise coming out and saying that, I do think, and look, Elise, this is no way a dig at you. I just think that you are the safe pick for them. They can make it look like they're paying homage to the Trump base while not really having to worry about putting somebody in that position that is going to, hold feet to the fire. I just don't see that happening with Elise Stefanik. I'm very, very sorry. But again, her district's an important district to hold if Republicans want to retake the House. I mean, those are districts that Democrats did try coming for. In the end, they turned out to be futile efforts, but they raised a ton of money against Elise Stefanik. So they're trying to raise the profile. I think part of it, too, is not just, cynical, like we're talking about. But part of this is what I'm talking about right now. I mean, it's political strategy. Raise her profile, make her a more key member of the Republican conference. This way you can take some of these harder districts off the table. Or swingable districts. Swingy,
Mm-hmm.
But if Democrats keep going in this direction, that district's going to be out of their reach anyway. I mean, that's an area, speaking of Glenn, he knows from New York City, he knows exactly where that district is. These are not incredibly liberal people. They want to be cool with the rest of the suburban middle to upper class club. They want to be cool. And there are rural parts in that district too, but that's where the swing is. Yeah, but they're not fanatical liberals. They're not. So, Democrats keep going in this direction. I'm not sure what kind of hope they would have to take those anyway. I will say this. The Republicans have added target seats to their 2022, including some one that's out in California that 2 months ago, when we were getting calls from people, nobody would have thought would have been on the list. And in truth, these are districts where I would have told people that you really did not play for them, right? Were they really unwinnable, or is it that you just didn't play for them, And that's really where we're at here, So, I am, by the way, I am talking about California 16. If you don't play, you can't win, guys. You cannot win a game that you're not playing.
Just like the answer is always no if you don't ask the
That's
question.
Right.
You gotta actually be in it.
You gotta be in it to win it. All right. But that was a good question, and I think that was what I was trying to get at in the beginning of the show. Mm-hmm. Don't get your hopes up. Do not get your hopes up, because that's not what this is. Believe me.
Dark Vader would like to know what you think of the crazy guy who thinks he's a girl ad for California.
You're talking about Caitlyn Jenner,
yes.
But I have to tell you, this is not who I was trying to get to run for governor in California. I thought would be a more unity kind of candidate. However, I think that was a hell of an ad. I think that was a very effective. I think that's the ad I would have cut for that person if he would have decided to run. I also have to say that it's the second time in a week that Caitlyn Jenner has impressed me. Meaning the first one being the response about transgenders in bathrooms, transgenders on sports teams. It's a matter of fairness is how Jenner reacted. And, you know, normally I wouldn't even say Caitlyn. I would say, like, you're not going to take my
I'm just gonna say
truth
Jenner.
from me. Mm-hmm. But so I don't insult anybody, we'll just say Jenner, okay? Mm-hmm. But, yeah, when asked whether or not Jenner opposed or supported transgenders in sports, the response was brilliant.
Yes, it was.
I oppose it. This isn't a matter of transgender rights. This is a matter of fairness.
And what's fair is fair.
And what's fair is fair. Folks, if you got nothing out of the damn poll we conducted, it's like Republicans want to talk about issues one way, but that doesn't, and even if the American people agree with them on it, it's not necessarily the way they would talk about it. So on transgender, it's not, what are you, freaking crazy? You know, it's, it's a matter of fairness. Like, wait a minute, to some of these people. How on earth is it fair for my daughter to compete in a track and field, for a track and field scholarship with a guy who thinks he's a girl, right? Or why should my daughter have to be in the locker room with a guy who thinks she's a girl? It's a matter of fairness. It's not fair to my daughter. It's not fair to me. It's not fair to my family. And it's not. And that's how the overwhelming majority of the country sees this. They see this as, it's not fair. And that was a brilliant way to put it. And all of these Republican governors, all of these Republican lawmakers I have seen try to take on this issue, only to cave later, because they typically do. They never argued that effectively. Mm-hmm. This is 1-2 sentences max. Max. You don't need to get into a theological or philosophical conversation about this. I oppose it. It's not fair. Great job, Jenner. Roll it out. Mm-hmm. That's it.
I mean, it is. That's what fair is fair. We're talking about no matter what sex part you change, or if you don't change.
Your bone structure, your bone density,
is your bone muscle structure. I don't care whether you were born boy, girl. You can't change that. Not unless you want to replace your whole entire skeletal system into what... good luck with that.
It's beyond our abilities. Right. Good luck with that. You'll be dead.
Yes. So, nonetheless, what's fair is fair. And the story.
Yep.
Biologically, men are stronger. I'm not one of those women. I'm one of those women. Anything you can do, I can do better too. I get it.
But it doesn't mean you have to deny nature.
But I can't deny that Rich can lift more weights than me. Okay? Anywho, I digress. Look at you.
Getting back in shape here, folks.
We're working on it.
Getting back in shape here.
Let's see, where are we? Descendant writer, a couple questions. Who wins in Oklahoma? Laymeyer trying to unseat Rhino Langford? And does Colton Boyles have a good shot at becoming Idaho AG? Yeah,
so Langford is still has an impressive organization, I have to say. I would really like to pull that one, honestly, because it's not that kind of Republican electorate. I do think that there probably is an opportunity to defeat him there, but he's got a huge war chest and he's got a big organization, so it wouldn't exactly be easy, I have to tell you. Then again, some of the stuff I saw in Texas, for instance, Susan Wright, the Trump-endorsed candidate, they were running robocalls saying awful things about her, and I didn't think she was going to run away with it like that. You know, I thought she was still going to run away with it, but I didn't think she was going to run away with it like that. So I think, but that's Texas, and it is different. I mean, it's possible we all are grossly underestimating the blowback here. You know, it is very possible, and Langford goes down. You know, I mean, that I just think that it's going to have to be well funded, and I would like to poll it. I mean, those are both races, by the way, very small populations, so to even poll them, always tricky. We forgot over time how volatile congressional polls really were, and the media always used to say, here's a congressional poll, by the way, they're notoriously difficult to poll, and it's a small population, and even campaigns have a hard time gauging it. Now we release them and it's like gold, it's like gospel. I think there will be things in the near future that'll tell us a lot more than some polls will about the chance that people like Langford have to hold on. Plus, we got to see some numbers, some money numbers, and we haven't gotten them yet. You can't beat a sitting senator unless you're well funded. I mean, well, that's not true, but I mean, you're highly unlikely to beat a sitting senator like Langford unless you're well funded. And he's got a lot of friends in the business community, a lot of friends. I mean, that's part of the formula for the Republican establishment, always has been. Keep the Chamber of Commerce on your side. Keep all of those, professional golf club riding Republicans. The little twisty sweaters and everything.
The little cardigans.
Keep them on your side, and at least you'll have the money to be able to try to fight back. We need to see fundraising numbers there. I do think he'd be a little bit difficult to beat, but it's also possible that we may be grossly underestimating what people are feeling right now. I wouldn't be shocked. I really wouldn't be shocked. After look, Texas was a stunner to me. It really was. Look, Adam Kinzinger was down there just days before in that race. They were all throwing their money and their weight behind some of these candidates that they didn't just lose. They got killed. But I think it's a little early because Texas is such a different animal. Republicans in Texas, when you piss them off, they will let you know, boy. Look, Ted Cruz, if you remember in the 2016 presidential primary, he was even in trouble in his own home state for a hot minute there. So Texas is a different animal, and that was before all of this. It's just that Trump really did make in the end, Ted did respectable. He won a state respectable showing, but it looked hairy for a minute there. So I'm a little bit hesitant to draw overwhelming conclusions based on just Texas alone. Without more. We'll have to see. We'll have to see. That's a good question. I don't know. I don't know yet where Langford's going to be. I think Kinzinger, after he looked at Texas, I think there is probably more of an opportunity than people realize to take him out. But the problem the right has, Laura, and we talk about this all the time, you got to consolidate behind somebody. You can't take out someone like Adam Kinzinger with a million different, options in the race. You just can't do that. Find the right MAGA candidate, whatever you want to call it. Find the right candidate that you think best represents the Trump agenda that Adam has delayed, tried to derail, destroy at this point, and get behind them. There's just too many people who want to be involved, and again, that's great. That really is great. You have to realize when you're maybe not the best one for the job, and
that would mean integrity.
It is integrity, but it's more like ego and
to let your
it's a bit of a messiah complex that's in the conservative movement, always has been. That's why Republicans like Mitt Romney were able to get nominated. It's like, which one, Rick Santorum or Newt Gingrich, right? What if one of them just would have came to the conclusion in the beginning that they had the better shot? You know what I mean? You're squishing my wire.
What do you do? Oh, I was
squishing
my
wire over here.
I just love how we start in Oklahoma and then you end up in Texas somehow.
Yeah, because Oklahoma, again, very close, but it is like the more it's a little it's just I don't know yet. You can't infer northeastern Texas, conservatism in northeastern Texas is not the same as some of those districts in southern Texas that we saw, and it's just not. They're totally different Republican voters.
Okay. M. Hala would like to know, will Gnome primary soon? Oh, and then you take a sip. Sorry. I should have longer one.
Yeah. That's not who the anti-Thune forces would want to see run against him. And I would argue, honestly, that it's probably an attempt of the moderate wing to try to save that seat for them. Because Noam, I think, shot herself in the foot. There's some things you just can't come back from. There are some things you cannot come back from. You get tricked or duped like that. The base doesn't forgive you for it. They don't. And that's that. Oh, speaking of which, to allow Merrick Garland, during that hearing the other day, on the domestic terrorism is code for you.
Yeah, that's
code for you.
People.
And the Republicans did nothing. Had no serious challenge to him. They just let him sit in the seat. If that was Matt Whitaker, the acting attorney general, they couldn't stand under Donald Trump after Sessions was removed. If that was Matt Whitaker, what do you think Jerry Nadler would have said? What do you think any other Democrat on the Judiciary Committee, which oversees the Justice Department, would have said to Matt Whitaker? If Matt Whitaker said there was going to be $85 million spent on hunting domestic terrorists, and they damn well knew those domestic terrorists were their voters. Not a single question about the cruel and unusual punishment that some of these people who have been arrested in connection with the January 6th event. We now know this was no insurrection. Nobody even died as a result of this. The only one who died was a Trump woman who was shot in the neck, unarmed, by a law enforcement officer. Nobody's been bothering to ask why. Nobody asked a single question about their detention. Their solitary confinement.
Ready?
You think Democrats would have let that slide?
No.
Come on.
But you know that. Come on, man.
Come on, man.
Okay.
I lost my mask.
Owen Jones would like to know, love Joe Kent for Washington 3. His ad in YouTube was great, and then he had an awesome interview on Sidebar with Viva and Barnes.
Yeah.
How likely do you think he will win that seat? His district seems so close to Seattle and Portland.
Yeah, so I've been hearing more about this, and I should have probably watched that interview with Barnes, and I didn't yet. Look, Barnes isn't going to hold it against me. He knows we all got our things going on.
Yeah, no, we get to it.
It was a fantastic ad. That is a district that I do think applies to what I was saying before, because there were some of these suburbs, and Robert and I spoke about them a little bit on Monday. There were some of these suburbs, folks, that's like that district. It's close to Seattle, but it's the exurb. And those are the exurbs in Dallas, right? For instance, they were supposed to be shifting dramatically Democratic, and they're shut out of those races. They're not even going to have a candidate on those ballots. And there was seats out there that what was his name? Dino Rossi, I believe, held before. So, during good years for Democrats, you'd see them swim back. But those are still the districts that when you have a wave, all right, a real negative national mood, because 2018 was not a wave. If that was your first midterm election, then you probably wouldn't know the difference. But a wave is 2010. A wave is 2014. Those were actual true waves where it sweeps districts away that you don't think a party could win in a normal setting, all things even mood, national mood. And it's not just one chamber, it's both chambers, the upper and the lower chamber, federally. And then you will see the states swing those ways as well. So, and I mean broadly, because Democrats tried to use the Virginia elections to argue that there was a wave coming. And the truth is, sometimes those local offices are the last to go when we're seeing political realignments, because all politics is local, because incumbency does matter. And the truth is, Virginia had already been blue. And those people were already on borrowed time, simply from the political realignment. It had nothing to do about whether or not we could view it as a wave. Those neighborhoods changed. They were no longer the same neighborhoods they were before. Consequently, many of them are dumps. Can we say this? Am I allowed to say this? They used to be, Virginia's a perfect example, some of the most beautiful neighborhoods in the country. Loudoun, right?
Yeah.
Not Fairfax, because Fairfax always had a crappy element. But
Norfolk.
Loudoun County, Norfolk, Newport News, right, down the line. Some of the most beautiful neighborhoods in the country, even places outside of Williamsburg now, Laura, dumps. Mm-hmm. Dumps. My fellow New Yorkers, you know what I'm talking about. Rochester, Westchester, Upstate, and Vaughan. Used to be gorgeous. Illinois is another perfect example. What do all these things have in common? What do they all have in common? Used to be red, now they're blue. California. That's my number one thing I hear when I go out to California, right? Mm. This used to be such a beautiful neighborhood. This used to be such a wonderful place to raise a family. This used to be such a great place to live. Now we're fighting for 4 square blocks. It's a tragedy.
And then trying to avoid stepping on the
crack
progress. Needles and
it's
the
progress.
fecal matter in the middle of the street.
Yep.
Yeah, good times.
That's progress. And we saw even that in Jersey, too. Mm-hmm. Those of us who were part of the exodus from New York to New Jersey for a long time. It was, man. For a long time, you know, there were parts of New Jersey that were gorgeous. They called it the Garden State for a reason.
Yeah,
Central Jersey, Monmouth Ocean. You know, we talked about this on Monday too. Monday. I mean, some of those neighborhoods, especially in New Jersey, removing the mob. I can't wait to see that episode Barnes was talking about because, it just so happened that these things benefited certain people in government and certain political class, certain powerful. And now look, it's like disorderly crime instead of orderly crime. And if you're from a neighborhood like I'm from, in both New York and New Jersey, you remember very, very vividly a difference. A distinct difference between the pre-mob neighborhood. I mean, the mob, the current, pre-mob abolition, or whatever you want to call it. When the mob ran the neighborhood, and then when the mob did not run the neighborhood.
And we're not condoning mobsters.
No,
okay?
I'm just
they
simply
are
saying.
Sociopaths.
I'm not. Yeah, I mean, but we're simply saying that they were orderly, and what replaced them was disorder. The mob would not whack out a district attorney. The mob would not allow drugs to be peddled in their neighborhoods. The mob would not allow
the destruction of the community.
Yeah, and what was that replaced with? Colombian drug lords who, you owe them and they take your child. And, they cut cops' heads off and put them in boxes on the precinct steps. I mean, this is totally, totally different. The mob had rules and they created order and the neighborhoods were nice. They were good. Block parties, safe, right? They were safe. And they are not now. They are holes, to use Donald Trump's famous word. And there's an exodus out of those neighborhoods for a reason.
I just love how you call it an exodus, though. All right, Jambo12 would like to know any chance of a genuine patriot social media consolidation site pushing genuine patriot candidates. Example, Joe Kant, J.D. Vance, David Gigolo.
Well, I think that's Donald Trump had his announcement. I think you all know how I feel about that. Robert is right. Donald Trump doesn't really have a very good track record with stepping outside of the bounds of what he knows best. And what he knows best is real estate and branding. Mm-hmm. Anytime he has tried these other ventures, airlines, wines, steaks, universities, they haven't done very well. And the truth is, he should have stuck to branding. And he should have taken one of these already existing platforms. He likes the Twitter format. Gitmo.life is a fantastic alternative, even more so than Parler, which does not behave the same, look the same. I'm not loving Parler. new parlor. Even, for candidates, locals could be an opportunity for candidates to really build a platform and get things out. Not only that, but to raise money even. Maybe in the future, locals can try to do something like that, because you have to be FEC compliant. You can't just be giving a candidate $5 a month as a subscription. It has to be known that it's a donation, right? So there has to be something that makes it FEC compliant. And I think that locals has a lot of opportunity there. I don't know where this new Trump site's going to go. I don't know where the Mike Lindell thing is going to go. I think Donald Trump should have slapped his name on a couple different alternatives, and across the board, not just social media, but news outlets. That would
have been nice, attaching to news.
Mike Lindell is trying to do 24-hour talk thing, and right. Why? When you already have Newsmax, you have One America News. You guys could help with that. I know that Mike Lindell had a problem with Newsmax. Again,
One America News would have been nice to add him.
I mean, again, there are people out there who are already way ahead of you on this, right? Is someone going to build a Twitter alternative better than Gitmo Life?
No.
What the hell are you doing then? What's the point? It's this savior complex.
It's beautiful. Yeah.
Not to mention,
it's my crab in the pot theory. Everybody wants to be the hero.
Not to mention, Laura, it would have been a nice little way to say thank you.
Yeah.
For dealing with all of the crap that you dealt with over 4 years to support me.
Preaching.
He was a defender of his voters, there's no doubt. But now after, and we're in a pre-era here, wouldn't it have been a nice little way to say, I see what you're doing. See you're trying to carry on the message. I appreciate your support.
That would be appreciation in its fullest form.
And this, I go down the line. It's really more than economic warfare. It is political. It is. If you can't speak, you can't get your message out. If you can't, get industries that are more supportive of your way of life, then you will not build communities with your voters. You will not win the demographic war. So what are Republicans doing right now in the state of North Carolina to counter what they're doing in Wake County? What is happening in Pennsylvania while Joe Biden destroys those industries that built up the Republican base? Horrible special on Fox Nation. I don't have Fox Nation. Somebody sent it to me. Don't tell anybody. But they had this follow-up from all of these people who lost their jobs on the Keystone XL pipeline. Several have been, on that were on there, were displaced. Well, guess what? They won't be voting in that state anymore. People don't understand. This is more. They have to have a bigger, Look, Frank Luntz. Remember the Nike plant going up in Phoenix? And when we went out there, I was like, this is stupid. So great. You're going to have a new plant with a bunch of voters that hate you and aren't going to give you credit for any economic progress you have here. These are professional class jobs. It's not like you have factory workers out there that are putting the shoe leather to the bottom of the shoe. These are professional class jobs and other jobs that will support the professional class. By the way, Nike is Frank Luntz's client.
That's all I need to know. End of story.
They're going in Phoenix, Arizona, a state with a razor-thin margin right now that has been trending more to Democrats, even in voter registration, whether you believe Joe Biden won Arizona or not. I just think, Republicans are very
narrow-minded individuals.
Oh, God.
Yes.
Or the leaders are, at least. Or the people who are in this, are. There's more to it than that. All right, let's roll.
Does Rich see any state lines shifting in coming years? The Greater Idaho Movement, the invitation from West Virginia to Virginian counties that want freedom, the Northern Californian counties have been pushing for a change for years and are included in the Greater Idaho Initiative. I view this as necessary to the union surviving in the medium to the long term.
I spoke to a group a couple of weeks ago who said when Donald Trump was president, they tried to leave Canada and become a 51st state. This is the center of Canadian energy. They would have been like, they're like the Texas of Canada, and they would have been a fairly large 51st red state. And they got no help. Maybe at the time, it didn't seem like a priority. I do think if we continue along this path, we're going to see, look, America is just a nation like any other, and it's not exempt from the laws of history and the laws of nature. And if we can't keep this thing together and this keeps going in this direction, we are going to see splits. That's going to happen. It's going to happen. Hopefully, we're past the manifest destiny era of our nation's history. I think it's much more likely to see fracture than expansion at this point. And I think that's sad, but I think that's a reality, because nations have to be held together by common ideals, common culture, common language, common, shared glory, shared suffering. And right now, we don't share any of the characteristics that Benedict Anderson, or at least, not that we don't, they're weakening. Any of the characteristics that Benedict Anderson would have used to say, this is a nation. By the way, great book club right there, Imagine Communities. If I think Benedict Anderson looked at the situation right now, he would say this is an inevitable fracture. This is an inevitable fracture. And, I think we get stuck in this false sense of security where everything is going to stay the same forever. Nothing stays the same forever.
But that's not our generation. That's our parents' generation.
Yeah, I think ours is more...
Our parents' generation.
I think ours is more
are in
pragmatic.
The denial stages. We are in the acceptance stage, like we could see it happening. But just like we were talking about before, while we were driving... You remember, like, middle class used to be the block party.
Yeah, it's the foundation of the community. Yep. And that's kind of the point now, isn't it? To destroy that. Yes. It's kind of the point. That's how you
Social
truly weaken autonomous. That's how you completely weaken autonomous communities by going after that class. They're the ones who hold together everything. They're the ones who hold together.
They're the jelly and the peanut butter jelly
They're
sandwich.
the ones who throw the block parties. They're the ones who have the congregations, the parishes, the Christmas parties, folks. I mean, they are what holds a community together. And you can't just take a constant assault like that. You can't. And then COVID was like a forced break of the human connection. And
it was also a test to see how much fear
I was just going to say, that sounds like a great time to test the boundaries of that, but you can't take a constant assault on the fabric of society like that without it. You can't take the constant assault on the fabric of society like that forever and expect it to just stay the same, life to stay the same, society to stay the same. Again, it's a false sense of security, and as great as this country is and has been, it's not immune to human civilization. Yeah. And I just don't...
The human contact.
Unless something changes quick and the hour is late, I don't see how we maintain this status quo like this. Unless either we see a return to the way it used to be, or somebody loses. And by loses, I mean is stamped out of society. Because the balkanization of society as we are starting to see it now, it always predates or precedes horrible conflict.
It's like the foreshadowing of
conflict.
Yeah.
Internal conflict. All right. With that, it's 12:58. Yeah, I know.
Morbid ending, Richie.
Came quick though. Well, no, look. Let me offer a little bit of hope here. All right. I see a lot of things that are a lot of moving parts and a lot of positive things. I'm not talking about politics at all. I'm talking about positive things that will be, good for society. You shouldn't matter, whether you're a Republican, a Democrat, whatever. You should absolutely care about the integrity of our electoral system. We are now almost on a weekly basis getting called to be consulted about this. That's positive. We had Matt on last Friday. Positive. Very positive. And then I would also say this. Who'd want to live in a boring time? Do you love history, right? Who would want to live in a boring time, the time in between the times, right? If you're a real fighter, this is the time to live. This is when it matters most. And this is when you can set an example for those who will come after you. You know, this is what you need to do to defend your way of life, to defend your freedom, to defend your social contract, to defend who you are, to defend your right, your family's right to live, exist, to chase after the pursuit of happiness, right? Mm-hmm. And not that I'm dying, you know, to get into a fight, but I'm also a kind of person who get bored pretty quick, you know? And so, I mean, I almost welcome it a little bit. Don't get me wrong, eventually I'll get to the age where all I want to do is play in my garden and not have to worry about any of this crap. And I'm sure maybe some of you are at that age now and you don't want to, you know, you don't want to see it. But at the very least, all of the people you admire throughout history who persevered, they didn't do so by living in the time before the time, right? So they're not admired for conquering easy odds. They're admired for
the odds being against them.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Incredible feats against the odds. Yeah. And still yeah. Right. And it wasn't easy for the people who came before us either. So it's just different now. And I will tell you this. The way you see them acting now is not the behavior of a confident status quo. The militarization of the capital, the banning of speech, the trying to deplatform of people, the trying of eradicating people, persecuting, prosecuting. That is not the behavior of a credible, confident regime of power. They're scared, folks. They're afraid. That's why they're doing this. They're afraid. They're afraid of you. They're afraid of me. They're afraid of us. That should tell you something. So it is absolutely not futile. If it was, they would be a lot more confident. They know they're in a precarious situation. Mm-hmm. And their grip on all of the things they want to control, culture, information, speech, that grip is tenuous at best. And they know that.
And they got used to it for so long.
They got used to it for so long. They got stunned in 2016. They felt like maybe they were hoping they were going to breeze through all of this without anybody pushing back in 2020 on what they did. But the pushback was so much more, and their reactions and the persuasive nature of that pushback. We convinced people, folks. It's not going away. And they're scared. And that's why they're acting like this. It isn't because they feel comfortable or stable. That's for damn sure. All right. With that, more on stuff like those kinds of conversations we're going to do in the Zoom Hangout more. And it'll be cool. And we'll talk about different books. And like I just brought up Benedict Anderson. I would like grab it and read it right now. We're going to do that. Let me set up a little survey today. We'll put it out on Locals. We'll see if there's some common, period of time where you guys can, come together. We can get the most participation. I mean, right now, our community is growing. And I don't mind saying what it is right now. I'll say it. I don't care. I mean, it's growing. But I want as many people on these calls as we can. So let's go to stats.
The way we're going to do the meetups, just so everybody knows, so it's not going to be a gaggle of people talking. We're going to actually use like the method that our children had to use when they went to online school.
Yeah, we'll take turns.
So we're going to have you all mute, and then you alert us when you want to speak, right. And then we'll unmute you one at a time, so it's not mayhem.
Yeah, right? That's a great idea.
Just letting you guys know.
About 3,000 total members, 500 active supporters, which just grew from yesterday when I last checked it. So I want as many of you guys on there as possible. So let's see if we can't find a time that works for everybody a little bit better. Also, I'm also going to put on that questionnaire whether or not you want me to change inside the numbers back to 10 o'clock. I don't want to butt in with anybody else's show. That's number one. I initially avoided that because Rush Limbaugh was on noon, and he took so many viewers, whether you're not just right-wing viewers. The guy's audience was huge. And we'll see whether or not you want me to keep it at 11 to 1, or if you want to go back to 10 to 12. All right? And maybe in between those days when it's not on. So we'll do Tuesdays and Thursdays. Maybe we'll do Tuesday, we'll do the Zoom meetup, and then Thursday we'll do an exclusive locals only live stream when they get that live streaming out, which is soon, from what I understand. I don't know yet. And I'll let you guys tell me what you think is best, you know?
Okay, and then I just want to bring up Eric Hunley, Unstructured, at 5:30 today. He will be having Mark Gruber, sorry if I butchered his name, and the lovely Robert Barnes. So this is definitely a tune-in.
Yeah, tonight, 5:30?
Yeah, 5:30.
Yeah, we'll be tuning in. And, also, Eric, I see you doing the News with Booze segment Don and I suggested. You know what, Eric? That's all right, because I don't think I'd drink on air. I got too many enemies.
Oh, tomorrow. Sorry.
Oh, it's tomorrow. Yeah,
Thursday.
that's right. It's Thursdays.
Thursdays. I'm thinking today's Thursday.
5:30 is Unstructured. Eric Hunley, Unstructured, with Robert Barnes and Mark Gruber. That's who you're trying to say?
Yes.
Yep. And that's Thursday, 5:30, not today. Correction. Yeah, and what I was saying, Eric, is that, that's probably good. I just don't think I drink on air. I don't think I could bring myself to do it. I just don't think I would. So
that's tonight.
Maybe I would with you on your show, News with the Booze, but I wouldn't on mine.
Well, yours is too early. If
right.
You're half drunk.
Yeah, and if you're drunk at 11 o'clock, there's something wrong.
That's just not right.
So anyway, with that, I'm gonna kick out of here. Don't forget to follow us on Locals, peoplespundit.locals.com. Subscribe on YouTube. Hit that notification bell. That'll let you know when we're going to go live. If you like the video, hit the thumbs up. All right. So like the page People's Pundit Daily on YouTube too. If you watch on Facebook, you can still follow me on Twitter at peoples_pundit. All right. Locals community, keep an eye out for that. Real soon, it's coming, and we will see you on Friday on Inside the Numbers, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Freewheeling Friday. All the best, folks.
All the best.
You're such a love taker, so just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker, so just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna